you still haven't denied that you called him a moron. And, you know, a lot of people are going to watch this and think he probably said it.
I'm not dignifying the question with an answer, Jake. And I'm a little surprised you want to spend so much time on it when there's so many important issues around the world.
Gotta love the big Texan Rex Tillerson. He didn't play that game, as he said. We got a big Missourian. Got a big Missourian in the studio right now. Ryan Johnson just busted the door down and said, I'm going to be on the air next. And I said, okay. Ryan Johnson joins us now, longtime conservative activist, he is the principal for Exemplar Public Affairs. He's the co-founder and former president of the Missouri Alliance for Freedom. You've heard him on these airways before. He took a little break. Well, he's on the other side of the state, so it takes a lot for us to get him back over it. But he's been on the Allman Report. He's been on Allman in the Morning. I think Ryan, you were on once or twice when I was filling in for Jamie.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Good
so, Ryan, welcome back to St. Louis.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Love being here.
Absolutely. So, Ryan, isn't Rex Tillerson right? I mean, how that was the end of a 4-minute clip where Jake Tapper asked him 3 separate times, "Oh, come on!" It's like a kid in a schoolyard. "Oh, come on, man! Tell me, just between you and me, you called him a moron, right?" I mean, Rex Tillerson has just returned from traveling halfway around the world, dealing with a nuclear-mad dictator in North Korea, a host of other things that are going on. I mean, pick a topic, Jake. We could talk the Iranian nuclear deal. We could talk North Korea. We could talk terrorism in just about any part of the world. And he wants to talk about whether or not he called him a moron 3 weeks ago.
Incredible, isn't it? I think I tweeted something about this when this happened. I mean, you look and you outlined it perfectly. I mean, you have everything from the nuclear threat from North Korea, and we are actually talking about the threat of nuclear war for the first time since, really I was a kid back in the 80s. I remember, living with that, growing up with that as you did. And then it seemed like it went away with the peace dividend and the collapse of the Soviet Union and all those things. And here we are now, once again, facing a very realistic possibility of potential nuclear war, and that's a pretty significant issue.
It really is.
You have the Iranian threat, and you have Russia, you have China, you have these multitude of threats, real, viable, existential threats to the United States of America, and they really want to pit the President of the United States against his Secretary of State about whether or not he may or may not have called him a moron offline somewhere. It's ridiculous, and it just cheapens our politics, and it takes us all the way back to junior high school.
That's right. And let's assume for the moment that we had a time machine and you and I could have been in the room and we saw that didn't happen. So let's say Rex Tillerson, because the media wants to imply, because he won't answer the question, it did happen. Well, the opposite is also true. If it didn't happen, Tillerson is still not going to answer their question, right? Because these are not the things, because then it's going to be something else. So what did the president say to you about this? So what did he say about that? Did he say this? Did he say this about so-and-so? Oh, my gosh. The media would rather chase all the shiny objects about who called who, what, when, rather than talk about these tough issues of our time that the president is actually working on every day, whether it's putting coal miners back to work in West Virginia and Kentucky, whether it's trying to do something with this morass of a mess of Obamacare, whether it's dealing with putting good Supreme Court justices on the bench, which we're going to talk about in a second, with Neil Gorsuch. They'd rather talk about the playground politics.
That's right. That's right. It's disheartening, but I don't think the American public is surprised by it at all.
Okay.
If they watch, MSNBC, and sometimes I actually will force myself to watch.
Got to see what the enemy's doing.
See what the other side's doing, or just listen to the nightly news for quiet. I mean, it is evident that they are solely focused on making sure that he either does not finish his first term as president of the United States. I think that they have dreams about him being impeached. That's evident. That they're hoping that the Mueller investigation actually comes of something that is an impeachable offense. They are, on the long shot spectrum, they are hoping that he doesn't win re-election. And I quite frankly think that he will be reelected. I think that he'll be reelected with a decent margin, just like he was elected the first time. So it's sad to see that they are so focused on the failure of this presidency that they almost will accept the failure of our country.
Right. And versus, like you say, and maybe pun intended here, versus making America great again.
Right.
So,
right. Or just protecting America from its threats.
Right.
I mean,
right. Exactly. Ryan, let's
They're just not going to nuke Republicans, right? I mean,
exactly.
North Korea wants to kill all of us.
Nuclear bombs are not discriminating.
That's
you
right.
know? Yeah.
That's right.
So Ryan, let's talk about the Supreme Court. What a different Supreme Court it is now versus a year ago, because Judge Neil Gorsuch is on the bench, and he's going to hear a very important case this term, isn't he? And Ryan, you and I fought the right to work battle here in Missouri. That battle apparently is going to continue to go on forever because everyone's going to keep going to the ballot box on it until that's settled. But that was for the trade unions. And what you're going to explain to us is there's a totally different body of law that deals with public sector unions. So first of all, what do we mean when we say public sector government unions?
Sure. So public sector unions are like your AFSCME, your American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, AFSCME for short, and several other bargaining units as well. These are your teachers' unions, your firefighters' unions, your police officers' unions, and then all the bureaucrats in Jefferson City, as an example, would fall under the moniker of government unions. And the law in the state of Missouri right now doesn't...
All of whom totally get paid by us.
By taxpayers.
By us, the taxpayers. Yes.
So if you imagine this, what happens is you and I, the Missouri taxpayer, fund their salary. And then the unions automatically deduct, and in many cases forcibly deduct, their union dues. Or even if they don't want to be a member of the union per se, the union will still forcibly deduct what they cleverly refer to as agency fees. And these are apparently the agency fees are to cover the expense of the union for negotiating and bargaining their union contract, because they're forced to be a member of this union. And so even if they try to opt out, the agency fees will still apply. So
and Ryan, how about what do they do with all these fees? Maybe you were going to get to that, but maybe let's get to the crux of the questions. Okay, so why do we care, right? So where do all these fees go?
That's a great question, and the fact is we don't know. We should know. Unfortunately, there are not reporting mechanisms in the state of Missouri that would force transparency in this space so that not only you and I would know, and not only the average Missouri taxpayer, but also government union membership has little to no idea about how union leadership is spending their money. However, we do know for a fact that an inordinate amount of that money is spent on politics.
Because we see it.
And policies.
Because thankfully it gets reported.
We see it.
Yes.
So we know that AFSCME spends a lot of money on politics, not only in Missouri, not only in Illinois, but around the country. So we're not suggesting that the unions don't provide some value to their membership. But if you take, for instance, the possibility that your average union dues are $40 a paycheck and you get paid every 2 weeks, that's about $1,000 every year. And if you think like a union typically does, that's $2,000 every election cycle. Now, again, we're not
per employee.
Per employee. Now,
so we're talking millions of dollars of automatic money.
Millions upon millions.
Okay.
Now, imagine if you're a teacher and you make $40,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year, and you're essentially on the hook for a max check every single election cycle. Maybe a third of that probably goes to maybe actual member services, but the vast majority of that is spent on political candidates and causes that the average teacher, the average cop, the average firefighter, and the average even government union worker doesn't agree with, and you and I certainly don't agree with.
Absolutely.
And they have this automatic just siphon that takes the money right out and puts it right into the political pipeline.
So, Ryan, we got a couple minutes left for this break, so let's just tee up what this case is that could change this whole Pandora's box, let's call it, this whole Bernie Madoff scheme that basically these union bosses have. What is the case before the Supreme Court this term?
So Mark Janis is an employee of the Illinois Department of Health Care and Family Services, and he's fighting for what he believes are a violation of his First Amendment rights.
So a union employee brought this case.
A government union employee in Illinois, Springfield, Illinois, mind you.
Surprised he hasn't been run out of town on a rail. Yeah.
I know, right? So he has brought suit, and he has said that his First Amendment rights are being violated. He does not want to have to pay these agency fees. He believes that the money is being used in ways to support those political causes and candidates that he disagrees with, and he doesn't feel well served by his union. He doesn't want want to have to be on the hook for the money. And he says, I shouldn't have to. The unions say, oh, yes, you do. And so now it's before the Supreme Court.
Wow. Ryan, when we come back, let's talk about, we'll have you speculate a little bit about what you think the current makeup of the court might do with this case. And there's a lot of things they could do, right? They could rule for, they could rule against, they could punt, they could do all sorts of things. So based on what we know about this court so far, we'll talk a little bit about, we'll prognosticate a little bit, and then we'll talk about what happens if they do happen to rule for Mr. Janus. What would that mean to this whole spidery web of influence and power that government labor bosses have in this country? All that and more on the Tim Jones Show. We'll come back, and we got your calls too, Linda, and I think it's Jose, possibly. Hang on. We'll try to get to you right when we come back, and then we'll go back to Ryan Johnson, who's here to talk about a very interesting case before our Supreme Court, coming up next on the Tim Jones Show.
This is the Tim Jones Show
These Trump fans, they're hardcore.
on FM News Talk 97.1. This year, the DTS Halloween Show heads to the Mineral Springs Hotel in Alton, Illinois, and we need a few listeners to help us with this paranormal investigation. If you think you're up for it, go to 971talk.com/Halloween and tell us why you should join us for the show. Brought to you by the Wentzville Bluffs.
If you're retiring in the next 5 years, we need to talk. Hi, I'm Bob Stockdale, First Vice President Investments with Stifel and host of On the Money, heard every Saturday from 11 till noon on FM News Talk 97.1. Retirement is a huge step, and when it comes to investing your retirement assets, you can't afford to make mistakes. It's vitally important that you work with an experienced professional to guide you through important retirement decisions. If you're retiring soon, we should meet to develop a clear plan for your retirement goals. Your meeting is an opportunity to understand your retirement situation and discuss how you can proceed. Of course, your consultation is free of charge and requires no obligation on your part. If you're retiring in the next 5 years, now is the time to start planning. To schedule your free retirement plan review, visit bobstockdale.com or call me at 636-448-7655. That's bobstockdale.com or 636-448-7655. Stifel, member FINRA, SIPC, and NYSE.
If you're thinking about a new car, get ready, because this is the event you've been waiting for.
It's Suntrup Hyundai's Race to 300 sales event.
We're on a mission to sell 300 new Hyundais, and you're the winner.
Now till the end of the month, get to Suntrup Hyundai for red hot savings on a new 2017 Elantra. Lease for $195 a month with $17 down, or buy it for $15,444.
At Suntrup Hyundai, we have the biggest inventory and we have the biggest savings.
Suntrup Hyundai makes it easy to get into a new Hyundai with a Hyundai Assurance Plan. America's best warranty, 10 years, 100,000-mile powertrain.
If you make $350 a week, we're here to get you a great car at a great rate.
It's Suntrup Hyundai's Race to 300 sales event.
It only happens once a year, so get in here and
Trade up at Suntrup.
Approved credit, 36-month lease. Elantra stock number H1520H. Financing through Hyundai Motor Finance. Negative equity applied to new loan. Payments include all available factory rebate offers on a combination.
race into Suntrup Hyundai. We have 2 locations, the largest inventory, and we sell the most. Shop online 24/7 at suntruphyundai.com.
Kubota's Orange Opportunity Sales event is going on now. Take on the tough jobs in a powerful Kubota Standard L Series. With the right combination of dependable horsepower and ease of operation, they're perfect for the independent property owner. Now get financing as low as 0% APR for up to 84 months, plus great customer instant rebates and a 6-year warranty. Now through December 31st, 2017. See us or go to KubotaUSA.com for more information.
Visit MissouriKubotaDealers.com or IllinoisKubotaDealers.com.
Hey guys, Glover here for Brook Linen. Chances are that you have either purchased sheets and linens in the past and have been confused or maybe even defensive about it because it seems like they're trying to take advantage of you with thread counts and this kind of cotton and that kind of cotton. So 2 very normal people, not in the business, Vicky and Rich, spent the night a few years ago at a hotel, loved the bedding, tried to buy a set, and they said, sure, it's $800. So they went and researched this business and found that you're pretty much being taken advantage of just like you thought. I recently received a complete set of Brook Linen sheets. They're on my bed. I absolutely love them. Brooklinen.com has an exclusive offer to just my listeners. Get $20 off and free shipping when you use promo code Glover at brooklinen.com. In fact, they're so confident that you're going to love the new sheets that they will offer you a risk-free 60-night satisfaction guarantee and a lifetime warranty on all of their sheets. So for $20 off and free shipping, use promo code Glover at brooklinen.com.
My name is Dale Pazinski, and this is how I live United. I volunteer with United Way, helping the homeless in my community by teaching computer skills and helping them build a basic resume to save on their very own USB drive. It's huge when somebody says, "Hey man, that job that you helped me apply for, I got it." My name is Dale Pazinski. I help people achieve financial independence. So I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer, Live United. Go to liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
What kind of news organization is this?
Mark Levin.
They're more curious about some guy on Reddit who may be 15 years old.
Weeknights, 9 to midnight.
Posting a video, which they don't like.
Mark Levin. Weeknights, 9 to midnight.
On FM News Talk
97.1.
This is the Tim Jones Show. Call now, 314-969-9797 or 866-455-9797.
Populist, nationalist, conservative revolt that's going on that drove Donald Trump to victory, that drove Judge Moore to victory, that will drive 15 candidates to victory in 2018. And well, and I hate to break the news to Graydon Carter and the good folks at Vanity Fair, but yes, President Trump's not only going to finish this term, he's going to win with 400 electoral votes in 2020.
The Dark Lord himself, Steve Bannon, predicting what Ryan Johnson already knew, that Donald Trump's going to get reelected. So,
that's right.
I don't know if he'll get 400 electoral votes, and that's what Damon doesn't get, is everything Bannon just said. Damon's missing not just Trump's election, but Trump. In the era of Trump, he hasn't lost any major election yet. All these special elections that the Democrats were trying to flip in some of these congressional districts, they're 0 for 4, 0 for 5. Roy Moore is actually a victory, I think, for Trump. I think he's going to be much closer to Trump than Luther Strange would have been.
That's a Trump-like candidate, isn't it?
I mean, it sure is. It sure is. So let me blow through some phone calls real fast here because these folks have been waiting very patiently. Linda, good evening. Welcome to the Tim Jones Show.
Hi, Tim. Thank you. I'm just curious. I've never really heard anybody discuss the history of government public unions. Was there a certain administration that brought them in? I thought I remember hearing something about FDR saying you never want to unionize government workers or something. And I've never heard the history of it, so I was curious about that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Linda. Ryan, do you know about the history? Because Linda's right. They kind of come into our consciousness in a major way probably over the last decade or so. And I think Linda's right. There was a quote from like FDR of all people saying, look, I'm all for the unions and the Teamsters and the carpenters and all that, but you never want to unionize government. And apparently that's happened.
That's absolutely right. No, she makes a good point. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, former president of the United States, was adamantly against the idea of public sector unions and the idea that they could then just perpetuate themselves. And that's quite frankly what's happened. They've taken a lot of taxpayer dollars in as dues. They then spend that to elect politicians who support government unions, and it becomes self-perpetuating. And, of course, they elect politicians that are supportive of bigger government. So in the state of Missouri, as an example, though, government unions didn't really become a thing until the 1960s. So they came into be. We have statute that deals with that dating back to that time frame. There's been really no significant reform to it since then. So I want to just as an illustration, I'm 42 years old. Okay. I was born in 1975. Let's say that I was a government worker and by virtue of that fact would have to be a government union employee. My union contract was probably negotiated in the 1970s.
Wow.
Maybe 40 years ago, maybe more, maybe back to the 60s, just depending on the bargaining unit. And I would still be operating under that contract today. There has been legislation filed the last few years here in Missouri. It'll be filed again, I think, by Senator Bob Onder of St. Charles County, has been the primary sponsor and really the lead on
yes,
this.
Act 10, like Governor Scott Walker
very,
did.
Very similar.
Yes.
And this would allow whole bargaining units to come together, let's say every year, every 2 years. Hasn't passed yet, so that's up in the air. But they would come together and they would vote whether or not to retain, to recertify those who represent them, or to decertify, quite frankly. The other part of his bill enforces that transparency component that you and I talked about earlier, which would then allow the Missouri taxpayer to know how those monies are being spent, i.e. how much is really being spent on politics.
Okay. So I think Linda dropped, but Linda, that was a great question. Hopefully we've answered it. Thanks for listening to the Tim Jones Show. And I think that's why we have people like Ryan in here. So Tracy wants to make a comment about teachers' unions. Tracy, welcome to the Tim Jones Show.
Hello. I was just listening, and I wanted to clear something up. Never in my experience have I, as a teacher, been forced to join a union.
Okay.
I've been in 2 different districts, and whenever we sign up, our dues does not go to political action. That's a separate. Actually, it's a separate, I guess, box that you check, and you indicate how much you want to put towards political action. And our dues money goes towards basically our insurance should something bizarre happen and we're being thrust with a lawsuit, that we have a $1 to $2 million legal defense that has educational experience on hand for us. And in addition, the monies then also pay for the overhead of offices and the directors for Missouri NEA. But when I was listening, because I listen to 87.1, agree with a lot, but I had to call in and say that's never been my experience at all.
Okay, and Tracy, every state is, just so you know, every state has their own rules, and a lot of Illinois is very different from Missouri, and so that's where this current Supreme Court case came from. But you actually raised a few points. Let me ask Ryan about some of that, and thanks so much for calling the show. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, bye.
Yeah, and Tracy makes a good point, Ryan. I don't think anything in this case, in the court's decision, is going to, if you want it, Tracy likes her union.
Right.
So she can still be a member, right?
She can. And in Missouri, teachers are treated a little bit differently.
And we should point that out, folks. Ryan and I, neither one of us wants to paint a... Teachers' unions are different from the firefighters' unions, are different from the AFSCME unions. Much different than the government employee unions, are different from the carpenters, the Teamsters. Now we're mixing apples and oranges because the last few I mentioned are considered private sector trade unions. So Ryan, if Tracy likes her teachers' unions, and you and I are not here to say that all unions are bad.
That's right.
We're flipping it around. We want the individual to make that choice for themselves. So for Tracy, let's say the Janus decision goes for Mr. Janus, and he does not have to either. And maybe Illinois is different. Maybe that's required that he join the union, but his dues aren't going to be forced from him for political purposes he doesn't agree with.
Right. So Missouri is a little bit different. It's actually been said that Missouri's current public sector union members already have, quote unquote, right to work.
Okay, the right to join the union or not.
Privates don't.
Okay.
And teachers are a little bit different. And those things and the ability to opt out will be mentioned, should be mentioned in each bargaining unit's contract, which is typically held by the Office of Administration at the state level. However, that's going to be different for teachers unions because their school districts are really the repository or the custodians of those records and bargaining agreements. Most teachers in Missouri will have a choice to join either MSTA or MNEA.
So you even have a choice of unions in Missouri.
That's right, mostly. But that doesn't apply in all the states. So when we're talking about this Janus case, it's going to have national implications, especially in states with a little bit worse public sector law. Like Illinois,
it may not have a whole. It may not have a whole lot of effect here, right? It may have a little.
A lot of room for reform.
Right.
A lot of room for reform, and the notion that teachers unions, excuse me, don't spend a lot of money in the political arena is just false. I mean,
and I can tell
patently wrong on its face. Teachers unions spend an inordinate amount of money on politics, and you remember this from your time in the legislature. The single most feared and powerful lobby that I have experienced personally in Jefferson City is the teachers. and not just the teachers, but the education establishment. And so you're talking the everybody from the superintendents to the teachers unions themselves,
who don't want any education
to the
reform,
administrators,
right,
who vehemently oppose any kind of ed reform whatsoever. They are very political. I've seen them and heard of them walk into state representatives' offices and threaten to go out and recruit a primary opponent for them. They are very aggressive in the political arena.
Speaking to Ryan Johnson here, the principal of the Exemplar Group, and Ryan, Janus case. Back to the Janus case. What? Prognosticate a little bit for me. What do you think is going to happen with this newly constituted Supreme Court with the brandly newly minted Justice Gorsuch?
I think this will be a 5-4 decision. Justice Gorsuch will be the deciding factor in this case. I think that we win it. I think that we win it on a 5-4 margin, though. It was going to go a previous case very similar. Rebecca Friedrichs, a teacher out of California.
A California teacher.
Had a very similar case.
Sued her union.
That's right. You got it. Justice Scalia died.
Yes.
And then there was a 4-4 decision.
Just got sent back, basically.
And you can you know how that goes.
Stalled out. So Ryan, this will have some effect in Missouri if Mr. Janus wins, but where we'll see the most effect is in states like California,
Illinois,
New York, and Illinois, right? Where these government unions just run roughshod over the voters.
And absolutely. And here's the dirty little secret that the unions don't want to say, and that's that the government unions in particular, their greatest strength is also their greatest weakness, and that's their membership. And when members are given a choice and they vote with their feet and they leave the unions, guess who loses their money? And they lose it forever. So when things like that happen in Wisconsin, and then Wisconsin, part of the vaunted blue wall that never goes Republican, goes for Trump in this election, that's why Steve Bannon is predicting a 400 vote margin in the Electoral College, because we're going to keep chipping away at this vaunted blue wall, and we're going to start to retake our country.
We're returning the power back to the people, just like Donald Trump is returning the power back to the Congress on some of these decisions he's making, where it should have been in the first place. Ryan, I'd love to have you comment on a big announcement this week. Our Attorney General, Josh Hawley, announced that he is definitely going to run for the U.S. Senate and take on Claire McCaskill, who squeaked through last time by the skin of her teeth because of some unfortunate comments made by the nominee at that time, Todd Akin. I see Josh Hawley as a different kind of candidate. He is young. He's only been the Attorney General for a year, but he has assembled an incredible coalition from everybody from establishment Republicans to Steve Bannon himself.
That's right. That's right.
So what do you think?
You know, I remember his AG's race, and I went to and you know this, but I went to 165 minimum grassroots events around the state last year during election year. I watched Josh Hawley get what I would call an organic standing ovation at every single event from Joplin to Jefferson County, where people would listen to his message and spring to his feet and give him a standing O. Now, typically, that was a conservative audience, but still, this is a young man who is a generational, transformational candidate with all the gifts, both tangible and intangible. He's one of the best politicians I have seen, and I don't mean that as a slight, but he's one of the best politicians, political operators that I've seen in a very long time. And as far as I can tell from looking him in the eye and having a conversation with the man, he believes what he says, which is to say he's a committed conservative.
Absolutely.
That he's going to go there and he's not going to disappoint us on his votes. I would suspect that he's going to get a very high Heritage Action score when he gets there. You hear me say when he gets there. I think he beats Claire McCaskill.
Wonderful. Hey, we got 1 minute left. How can folks follow you? Are you in the social media world?
Sure. At Ryan Johnson MO is the best way to get me on Twitter.
Okay.
So yeah, check me out there, and you know, I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey,
to be
you
on
were
the
great
show.
tonight. Lots of information, and we will definitely have you back. Is it Josie?
No, that's Hosea.
Hosea. I'm sorry, Hosea. The spelling here, I couldn't quite read. Hey, I got 30 seconds, Hosea. I'm sorry I couldn't get to you. What you got? Real fast.
Real quick.
Yes.
Real quick. If Michelle Obama would have posed nude like the First Lady now did, do you think that Barack Obama would have been elected president?
Oh, I don't know about that one, Jose. I'm not sure. Hey, this is the Tim Jones Show. We'll end on a light note, right? Thanks for listening. Thanks to all the great callers tonight. Thank you to Ryan Johnson. Thank you to Annie Fry. This is Tim Jones, The Tim Jones Show. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Wouldn't be here without you. Katie, Suzanne, Abby, I'll be home soon. Ken and Andrew, thank you so much. We'll be back next week live, as we are every week, 7 to 9 p.m. on The Tim Jones Show, FM News Talk 97.1. We have got Jamie Ullman in the morning.
This is the Tim